This is Late Night Health. This is the radio show that cares about the most important part of your life, your health. Hi, I'm Mark Allen. During the next 2 hours, we're going to tackle a number of subjects that touch each and every one of our lives. Starting with hour 2, we're going to be spending some time on self-healing with Liberty Forrest. She's a free spirit. You're going to get a kick out of her. And we'll also be spending some time with Kathy Murillo. She is a myofascial release practitioner, and she'll talk to us about this relatively new therapy that has come down. And wrapping up today's show, we're going to be spending some time, just a few minutes, with Command Sergeant Major Todd Burnett, retired. He's the co-founder of USX. He is guiding the team up Mount Everest. We talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to get an update and find out exactly where these teams of both retired and current enlisted folk are on their trek to the top of Mount Everest, as they talk about and encourage people to learn more about PTSD. During this hour of the show, we're going to talk about, we're going to be visiting Robert Clancy for a longer period of time today. We're going to be talking about when life changes on a dime, and we'll start right now with Dr. Keith Kanter. That's actually Dr. Keith Kanter. He's a PhD in nutrition and an N.D. in naturopathic medicine. Dr. Kanter, welcome to Late Night Health.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on the show, Mark. And hi, Dale, if you're there in the background. I mean, Dale.
I'm here.
He is here, always here and listening. We're going to talk about the summer and summer cravings for foods and what they mean. And in some cases, apparently, Dr. Kanter, you found that the cravings of food can trigger certain areas in the mind that are like people with addictions. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. If you give me a minute or so, I'll explain that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
As quickly as I can. I have a program called N.A.M.E.D program. N as in November, A-M-E-D program.com. Anyhow, and what that does is it works on creating special menus for people that have addictions to drugs or alcohol or any mental illnesses. And what I found through a lot of research, because I've been stuck home since I got injured and sick, and I had to have some major operations, so I had lots of time to do the research, but
right.
We all have opiate receptors in our body, and they're in our brain, our spinal cord, and our gastrointestinal tract. And these opiate receptors, when they're stimulated, release chemicals, and these chemicals give our body urges. All of our urges, except for sex, come from the opiate receptors.
I'm trying to. Where does the? Let's talk about the important one then.
The sexual ones come from different hormones like testosterone and estrogen.
All right, got it. You made it very simple and took away my joke, but it's all right.
I'm sorry. I was playing my scientist role for the first
I understand.
Minutes.
So if I have a summer foods, black
olives.
Well,
let me just finish the sentence,
all right,
and then we'll
sure.
go into the summer foods, and I can be specific.
Sure.
So through my research, what I found is that I'm researching opiate receptors now, because a friend of mine was starting some clinics, addiction clinics called 5-star rehabilitation centers.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me to create the menus, and I studied it, and I learned more and more about the opiate receptors. And they don't talk about drugs hardly at all. They talk about how other things stimulate it, and they talked about the diseases that are getting more funding, like diabetes, like Crohn's disease, like fibromyalgia, like mental health, like PTSD. And when these opiate receptors are stimulated, they do lots of things besides give us urges for drugs and alcohol. They affect other diseases because they're involved in inflammation, and inflammation, which is internal swelling but not like a swollen ankle,
mm-hmm.
that plays havoc with the insulin system, and it plays, and it hurts a lot of the other, or causes more harm to a lot of the other diseases, including mental illness and substance abuse.
My understanding
so I had
is
to
that
stop both things, not stimulate the opiate receptors and the inflammation.
Excuse
and now
me.
we could go to summer cravings. So
Gotcha. My
sense.
understanding is that inflammation is the beginning of many diseases as well.
Correct. Heart disease. You could just go on and on and on. The bottom line is it's caused by having an acidic, having too much acid in our body, too low of a pH, and because of the way we eat and drink, our body's always fighting to maintain closer to a neutral pH.
Which is like 7.0.
It's 7.0. The body really wants it about 7.35. When it's below that, the body's always fighting to do it. So I try to help the body through an alkaline menu, besides other specifics, and alkaline water, to make it easier for the body to maintain the pH that it wants, so we don't have inflammation. And if we could get rid of inflammation, that would be a huge help to not all the diseases, but a very large percentage of the diseases, if not being caused by inflammation, are definitely hurt and hampered by inflammation.
Well, if I crave certain foods, like during the summer, I'm just trying to think of a couple of things. Potato salad, black olives, barbecued chicken. Those are three. Are those good to eat, or are those not good to eat to get to those opiate receptors?
Well, I have very specifics that I was going to go over. But in general, it depends on how you make it. If you have regular chicken and you don't have too much sauce on it, which has additives and preservatives, because that stimulates the opiate receptors, and it's more natural, there's nothing wrong with barbecue chicken. Potato salad, there's nothing wrong with. The problem is all the stuff that we put in, that we mix with the potatoes, are we putting in a lot of additives and preservatives, and those things, like I said, stimulate the opiate receptors.
Right.
And when that happens, it causes inflammation. So let me give you the main ones, and then you could ask me, and
Sure.
I may or may not know the answers on it.
Got it.
If you're craving sugar, which is the biggest craving that most people have.
Well, it's like an opiate itself. It's like a drug
yes,
itself.
Almost. Yeah. Somebody wrote a book, I think, Sugar is More Addictive Than Cocaine, which
Yes.
I don't know if that's actually true, but it's one of the most addictive substances there is. And if you crave sugar, it could indicate a problem, because that is definitely going to stimulate the opiate receptors, and it's going to cause inflammation and or a hormonal imbalance, which will cause you problems. So what you have to do when you crave something like that is you can't use the substitute sugars, except for stevia, because they cause the same problems. So you have to try to eat a balanced menu with proteins, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, because our brain is made up of almost all fat, and complex carbohydrates, because we need energy. You have to stay away from the real sugars or substitute sugars and the real simple carbohydrates, because those cause problems. And if it doesn't make you if you don't have an inclination for drugs or alcohol already, then it probably won't make you, have the urge for it. But then it'll give you other problems like diabetes, once you're overweight, heart disease. Once you're overweight, almost every disease increases by large magnitude. Even cancer increases 50% if you're overweight. So cravings for sugar
are a big one.
Of course, is the single biggest problem if I had to pick one.
Can you give me two or three others very quickly as we end this segment?
Yeah, if you have cravings for ice, which some people do, they chew on ice. That's a form of something called pica, P-I-C-A, and it's an eating disorder. And they find that lots of times with pregnant women and in a lot of third world countries. But what it's really indicating is that when you have a craving for a non-food substance, using ice as an example, it means you have an iron deficiency, which could lead to anemia and other problems. And again, you have to stay away from that and go to a more balanced menu where half your plate has color in it, meaning fruits and vegetables.
Some green in there, too.
Yeah.
And not for mold.
Like the colors.
Right.
And the darker the fruit, the less sugar it has in it. Even though that's natural sugar, but still, the darker the fruit, the less sugar it has in it.
So blueberries versus cantaloupe?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Blueberries would be better than cantaloupe. Another craving people have, and we're hearing more and more about this, is gluten or starchy carbohydrates. And what that tends to indicate is you already have inflammation, and for some reason the body's tricked and it thinks by getting more of the gluten or more of the starchy carbohydrates, which potato salad would be, it's going to create a hormone imbalance and worsen the inflammation, which I already said at the beginning causes other problems. And then it'll change your balance of something called cortisol, which is put out by the adrenal gland.
And you start gaining weight at that point, don't you?
Well, when you put out too much cortisol, it stops the nice things like serotonin and melatonin, which makes us more mellow and helps us sleep. So it throws off everything. Now you don't have enough sleep, and that causes other problems, and I can take the whole 2 hours.
I know.
You know what I mean? If we want to go to this. But that's what happens from gluten.
Okay, Doctor, we have to take a break. Hold on.
Okay.
Dr. Keith Kanter is our guest. He's an advocate of natural food and healthy living, has been for 27 years. By the way, he has been an officer in the U.S. Marine Corps since 1976. We'll maybe mention that as we come back out. I'm Mark Allen. Join us at LateNightHealth.com. All of our shows are there. You can listen to them. Go to LateNightHealth.com. More coming up. Don't go away.